you have no idea who you can become if you pour into your cup first and be the best version of yourself. You can become a better mother, a better partner, a better everything. And so taking a chance of like, what would that look like? Like, what would that look like if I was in tune with myself and was my happiest, best version? Does, is that worth it? Yeah. Take my money, please.
Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erica Cruz. Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Chingona Revolution podcast. This week is not a solo episode. I am joined by some amazing individual that I've had the privilege and honor of working with over the last few months. And they've been invited onto the podcast because they've really done an amazing job of reinventing themselves, of going from overthinking to showing up imperfectly, from really being in a toxic work environment to leaving that, to not really knowing what they wanted to do, to starting their own business. And it is just a handful of incredible stories that I wanted to make sure you all had a chance to hear and listen, because this month, the theme thus far has been allowing yourself to embrace change and allowing yourself to pivot and reinvent yourself. And obviously you hear my stories, but I think it's important for you to also hear these stories from individuals of different walks of life. So with that being said, welcome, ladies. I am going to just kind of call on you and I'll have you give us just a quick introduction as to who you are. Jackie, welcome to the podcast. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
I am Jackie. I am a mother, a wife, a nurse, real estate investor, and developer.
Lovely. And when we had invited you onto the podcast, you talked about how before joining Courage Driven Latina, you were really stuck in like perfectionism, paralysis, and you felt burnt out, which then turned into a lot of inaction. And tell us what happened whenever you did join Courage Driven Latina, like, because you're no longer there, right? You are a badass real estate developer, somebody who's showing up consistently on social media. You're a nurse, you're swimming, you're like you have a shed that's being built for you. That's going to be your office. So like complete transformation. Tell us what happened.
So I joined your program. I heard you through, somebody else's podcast, Wendy, and you spoke to my soul. And I was like, this can't be life. So I went in like thinking that, this was actually going to help me take more action, right? Like, why am I not making movement? Why am I not having momentum? Why am I not succeeding? But it was actually a lot more than that. I think probably the most memorable thing was when I did your like guided meditation, visiting your younger self. I think I cried for like 5 days after that, just realizing that like the way I grew up and the need to achieve and to be perfect and to be seen comes from my childhood and the lack of love and the lack of being seen and the expectation. So I think that was like the biggest moment for me out of all of the great things you offer. It was something I didn't even know was a thing. And that led to the journey of realizing who I am, letting go of the things that I think I should be for everyone, getting to know who I am and loving myself in that process, and realizing how perfectionism just hinders you. It like is the worst thing you can ever hold, because you don't even allow yourself to be or to create or grow because you're just so stuck in that box.
Definitely. Oh my gosh, that's so well said. And tell us about Jackie now, because you are no longer stuck in perfectionism. So, what are you up to now?
So right now we're developing our first new construction project, which is not very common as a new real estate investor. We just purchased another project as well that's going to be a fix and flip that we funded completely with no money out of pocket, private investors and some hard money loans. I'm actually going to be a co-leader of the Invest Her, which is a big community of female investors in Atlanta. So we're bringing that back in
Amazing.
July. So I'm a co-leader, and that came from putting myself out there and just asking, like, "Hey, can I do this?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure, come on." I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm still working. My goal and job, I don't care if you hear it, I am leaving by the end of this year. Um, I just feel like I'm at the brink of my momentum, and if I don't open to myself to the unknown, I will never know what is waiting for me. So that's what's happening.
And you are showing up consistently, creating content, and, like, still working on taking care of yourself, and I would not say that you're stuck in inaction, like, quite the opposite. I think the next courage project we gave you was like, "Can you just have some fun?" Right? Because 'Cause you're getting so much done. So much done. So it's been such a beautiful journey. Even just seeing the way that you show up on the calls has, like, changed, right? So you've completely reinvented yourself from being in your head about it and being in an action to showing up imperfectly and not letting perfectionism get in the way, and look at all of the amazing opportunities that have come out. And then I think the other thing that just stands out to me is, like, you've sometimes we're like, "Oh, I want to leave a job. I want to leave a job." But you have now made a decision and given yourself a timeline, and there is so much power in the simple act of making a decision, because I have no doubt that you might even leave before. Because I remember I did something similar when I was leaving my tech job, and I was like, all right, by the end of 2020, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave by December of 2020. And I didn't even have a business yet. You have a little bit of a head start. So that's why I'm like, I think you're going to leave earlier. And then I think I ended up leaving in October of 2020. I didn't even wait until December. I was like, what am I waiting for? And I mean, the fact that you already have another project, and it just goes to show that you're definitely on the aligned path. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Sunkin, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi everyone. Erica, thank you so much for having me. My name is Sunkin Duarte, and I was born and raised in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I think growing up as a first generation Latina, daughter of immigrants, like I was just such an overachiever. I really resonate with Jacqueline. Like I felt like I was such a perfectionist. I was always, like, getting the best grades. I got 2 full rides to, like, get all my 3 degrees, and that if that wasn't an indicator of success, I don't know what wasn't, but I was just doing all of that to, like, please my family and, make sure that, they felt like what they did for me, like, was of value and that I was really, trying to help them. But aside from that, I consider myself like a scholar, a humanitarian, and now I'm really tapping into my more spiritual side. And so I'm going through yoga teacher training. And yeah, it's been such a journey. I've left 2 jobs. I've been on a self development journey for the past few years. And I think Erica's program and yoga teacher training has helped with all of that. And now I have more clarity on what I want to do. I am open to a lot of things. I don't think I'm completely, like, closing the door to my field, but I just know what type of role will energize me, and I also just am looking forward to, rolling out my yoga business and helping people in that aspect. So I would just say that, if there's anything that's connected in everything that I do, it's either helping my family, helping my community, or helping the world, which is what I've done through my career.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And I think a lot of people resonate with what you shared at the beginning of, sometimes we don't really stop to ask ourselves if our accomplishments is something that we desire. We do it because we know that the generation that came before us did so much for us to have access to these accomplishments, and we just feel like we have to take full advantage of all of them. So I think you've had such just like a almost like a self-discovery awakening, right? Of like really coming home to who you are. And the person that we are is going to keep evolving, right? The person you are now is not the person you're going to be in 10 or 15 years. But whenever we had invited you onto the podcast, I know you mentioned that whenever you were listening to the podcast before even joining the program, you left your first toxic job and city. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So I was in Washington, D.C., and I had, this prestigious job. I broke into international development, which is really difficult for Latinas to break into. And I was just living, my dream, or at least I thought so. And I went to DC with like zero thought. I was just like, I am on a roll. Like, I'm gonna go like conquer DC and the world. And my parents were a bit like worried about me and hesitant, but they were like, okay, she's out there doing her thing. She's gonna be so successful. And I went. And during my time there, I just felt so empty inside and I couldn't understand why. And then I reached a point where I was just burning out and I'm like, why why am I feeling like this? Isn't this everything that I wanted? And
Yes.
it was so funny because I came across your podcast. I came across one of your episodes and it was around Hispanic Heritage Month and I was giving a presentation and I decided to give a presentation about your podcast and I was like, "Oh, there's so much like to work with what she's saying here and a lot of themes." So I'm just going to present like one of her episodes and talk about the Latino community. And then I did that and I don't know, there was just a voice inside of me that kept telling me, "You need to leave this job and you need to leave DC." And I was just going like back and forth and I'm like, "I don't know if I should do this." And I think about maybe a month later, I left my job because it was too much for me. And then I was just debating like, should I go back to DC? Should I not? And um there is an instance where I went back to DC to collect some of my things because I was still on the fence. And then as I was boarding the plane, I was listening to another one of your episodes about, I don't know, something about your intuition and it was like saying, if you feel like uneasiness and you don't feel like growth and expansiveness, then that's a sign that you shouldn't be there. And I felt that in my stomach and I asked my body like two things. I'm like, how does it feel if I were to stay here? And I just felt so much unease and disgust and like I just wanted to throw up and I'm like, I don't think I should be here any longer. And that's wild because I worked so hard just to get to this point and what I'm just gonna go back to DFW and do what? What am I gonna do there? And then I asked myself, but how do you feel about going home? And I felt so much comfort and I realized that's what the decision that I needed to make. So I came back home and I took another job. It was remote and it was a little different. It was more humanitarian, and so I felt like that would be more aligned to what I wanted, but I ended up realizing that the role itself wasn't aligned to my personality.
Got it. And that you recently left, right?
Yes.
Because I remember like it was a toxic work environment and you followed your intuition, went to yoga teacher training, and I remember whenever you made the decision to leave the job and just like how relieved you felt. So, where are you now? Like how do you feel now after having walked away from these two jobs? The one that like you should have been happy to be at, and I'm using air quotes, right? You know, it's just like the message we tell ourselves or the message that we might get from like the older generation or our parents or our family who's like, "Oh, pero tienes buen trabajo, like why would you leave it?" So how does it feel having walked away from those things? One that was like a very prestigious job, another one that on paper also should have been good, quote unquote good, because it was from humanitarian and remote and all of that.
Yeah, gosh, it I felt so many things. I think at first I was having like a battle between like my ego and my soul. I think that's the best way
Yeah.
to describe it. Like my ego was like, "What are you doing?" And then my whole community and a lot of my friends, they're based around like my nerdy, like academic achieving side. And they were also like, what are you doing, girl? And to this day, they're kind of still like questioning what I'm doing. But on the other hand, I joined this community and I joined yoga teacher training, and I've never felt so like expansive. Um, I thought this didn't exist. I thought I would always have to like repress like that, I don't know, like feminine side of me, the one where I'm like intuitive and I listen to myself and I'm very spiritual. I've always have been, but I kind of always neglected that. And I thought that, you know, living in like more of my masculine energy, I had to neglect that and just ignore it for my whole life until I just couldn't. It was making me sick, honestly. And so joining this community and yoga teacher training, it was like reaffirming me that I'm on the right track and I need to do what fills up my cup and what energizes me, and not necessarily what, you know, people think I should be doing, because it's just going to drain me. And at the end of the day, you know, you have one life, and if you don't live it in your purpose, then what are you doing? So now I am just open to so many things. I'm open to jobs that feel aligned to my soul, and I know what kind of job that is. I know it needs to be something where I'm creative, where I can engage with like people, maybe coach them in some way, and I don't know, something that involves like being intellectual. And I have all those things in me already, but I think I was trying to just compartmentalize that into a role that
Yeah.
was just solely like intellectual, and that's not solely who I am. I need something that just encompasses all sides of me, like the caring side, the nurturing side, but also like the creative side and the intellectual side. I need something that encompasses everything, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And I'm looking forward to also being a yoga instructor, because I have used my all of my talents through that. I'm still on the fence about whether or not I'm gonna do that full time, but I'm just open right now to a lot of things, and I'm just seeing where the universe takes me now.
If this podcast is resonating with you, then I invite you to my newest webinar happening on Monday, July 29th at 5 o'clock Pacific time. 4 proven steps to reinvent yourself in just 90 days. This is for you if you know that you're ready for a change in your life. Maybe you feel stuck and you know that something needs to change, even if you don't know what that change is just yet. It's also for you if you are ready to reinvent yourself, whether this means building confidence, maybe you want to start creating content, maybe you want to start or grow a business, or maybe you want to pivot your career. It's also for you if your dreams or whatever goals you have currently live in your head and maybe your journal, but you're ready to make them a reality. You're ready to make them something that others can see outside of you, right? Not just living in your brain, not just living in your journal. Or maybe you've been putting everybody else's needs before your own, and you're really ready to work on you, especially because we are officially halfway through the year at this point. So in this webinar, you are going to learn why it is that you feel stuck and why it is that you resist change. You're going to learn how to go from thinking about your goals and dreams to actually starting, whether it is a dream project of yours or a business. You're going to learn how to go from thinking about it to actually starting it. You're also going to learn how it's possible to completely reinvent yourself in less than 90 days. And I'm going to be sharing the 4-step framework and my strategies that have supported me and hundreds of clients in embracing change and executing projects successfully. I mean, we are talking launching podcasts, dating after never having dated before, dating after a divorce, advocating for themselves at work, transitioning to a different new career, pivoting from one industry to the other. I mean, the projects that my clients have worked on are incredible. Anything it is that you want to do that you've held yourself back from, come to this webinar. We're going to go over those 4 proven steps to reinvent yourself. And I'm super excited because at the end of the webinar, we are going to be opening the doors for Courage Driven Latina. So if you've had your eyes on Courage Driven Latina, now is the time to join. So make sure that you register for the webinar because there will be a bonus. So I don't want you to miss the bonus, but if you're not familiar with Courage Driven Latina, it is my transformational 12-month group coaching program that's going to help you gain clarity, confidence, community. It helps you execute a courage project in 90 days and connects you with a like-minded community of badass women. And there will be a special 48-hour bonus for all of you who attend the webinar. So be sure to register by using the link down below. Again, this is happening on Monday, July 29th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I cannot wait to see you at 4 proven steps to reinvent yourself in just 90 days.
I love it. So you went from feeling like boxed in toxic jobs to feeling completely expansive, getting certified in something that you already love. You're able to make money from it. You get to decide if it's full-time or not. And then you're just open to possibilities. That is a pretty damn good transformation. Yeah. Thank you for sharing with us. I am curious, do any of you have questions for the group? I didn't have you prepare for this. So if you don't have any, don't worry. But like, is there anything you'd want to ask the other women in the podcast with you?
Well, I did
Yeah.
have a question for Jackie that I would be totally interested in seeing what her real estate investments are. I think that's so exciting. I've always been interested in doing that myself. It's just the state I live in, which is California. It's quite a challenge.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of real estate. I actually have friends in real estate that they live in California and they would never invest in California because California is a very not landlord friendly. It's very tenant friendly. So
Yeah.
um, I live in Georgia, and right now I'm doing projects to sell, so I'm not planning to keep these. But as I pivot into building to keep, um, Georgia is a very landlord-friendly state. So that's going to be good for us, thinking long-term wealth, thinking like now how do I put my money into projects so the IRS doesn't tax me six figures at the end of the year. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna connect, Jackie, because yeah, I've always been interested. Like I said, I'm very in touch with real estate here, and I know I can't really afford to do any kind of what you're doing, but that's what I've always been interested in myself, and just definitely looking forward to that. And you go, girl.
All right, thank you. You go too.
So, Sunkin, you and I have spoken before, so I'm very happy that you finally are moving forward with all these changes. I know we were in a breakout room for Chingona Revolution. No, for CDL, I'm sorry. And it's really nice to hear your progression. So I'm really happy to hear that. So congrats.
Yeah, thank you so much. Likewise.
This is literally what happens inside of the program. You just connect with people, and then just like Erica and Jackie are going to connect, right? Or just like Erica witnessed whenever Sunkin was like down in the mud and not sure what she wanted to do, and now she's like on the other side and glowing. It really is a beautiful community. Does anyone else have a question for somebody in the group? Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
So for Sunken, what or like what are you doing to tap into like your more spiritual side or your intuition? Like what are some action or what are you doing?
Yeah, I love this question. I would say I've always done a number of things. So I think I started with yoga because when I started my second job, I was like, I need something to ground me. So I just started with yoga, and then somewhere along the way, I started realizing maybe I should become a teacher. And so through my teacher program, I learned about Ayurveda, which is like the sister science of yoga, and a lot of people don't really know about it. So I looked into that and I realized, oh, this is how my body works. These are like the type of like dominant elements in my body. These are like the things that I need to like kind of put my body more in balance and just feel more grounded. So I've looked into that, and that's helped me um live like incorporate like more practices into like my routine or into my diet that help me stay more balanced, because I actually have like two dominant like doshas is what they call it. And that's really interesting because I have to learn about both and learn, what types of things I need for like to manage those two doshas. So I do that. I guess other things are like spending time in nature, journaling, feeling just grounded, and then through my yoga practices, like, incorporating like music and meditation, and just having that time for like introspection and self-reflection helps me like connect to like my energy and helps me realize, what's draining me and what feels like more aligned to me. And that's just like my guiding compass to, live life.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Okay, so I think the last question that I have for you all is, and actually you all join the program kind of at different times. So sometimes you see each other on calls, sometimes you don't. But I think this podcast episode is a great example of how there's just, even if everybody's in different walks of life and doing completely different things, there's still something that bonds the group together. And it's the desire to be the best version they could be, the desire to see other people win, and having a supportive community around you who believes in you, even if they're in a completely different industry than you are. So, with that being said, if you, I mean, I know that actually, I know a few of you that I've spoken to. Jackie, I think you heard me on Wendy's podcast and you were like, I need to join, and you joined right away. But I know that some people sometimes like have been thinking about joining Courage Driven Latina, but they delay it. So what would you say to somebody who's thinking about joining, but maybe they're like, how do I know this is going to work for me? Like, what if it's just a waste of time and money? And, like all of the normal objections that people have when they're going to make an investment that feels like a big commitment. So, Erika, I'll start with you just because you're the first one on my screen. So, like, what would you say to somebody?
I say that time is divine. If you have that mental, like just that at the pit of your stomach, like I'm ready to do something else, just do it. Like if we stop and think sometimes, I feel like we overthink stuff that we're being led to just follow. Like just go by your intuition, go by what your body tells you. Just do it. If it works out, it all depends on you, right? You give us the layout and the guidance and the support, the community, but at the end of the day, it's really on us. But if we're already considering it, just do it. You'll see the upside to it.
I couldn't agree with that more. We don't get time back, right? Time is the one thing we don't get back. Like we can always make more money. We can always make new friends. We cannot get time back though. Jackie, what about you?
For someone that is on the fence about joining, just do it. I mean, I feel like for some people, the need to want to change has to be bigger for them to take action. Um, and so that's like a big hindrance, especially when you're not used to investing in yourself and you're used to pouring into others. Like, you have no idea who you can become if you pour into your cup first and be the best version of yourself. You can become a better mother, a better partner, a better everything. And so taking a chance of like, what would that look like? Like, what would that look like if I was in tune with myself and was my happiest, best version? Is that worth it? Yeah. Take my money, please.
I love it. Thank you so much. And Sunkin, what about you? So, like, let's say that because you were listening to the podcast way before, so you probably were considering the program a few times before you actually joined. So, like, looking back now, what would you say to somebody who was like in your shoes?
Yeah, of course. I would say I totally resonate with what Erika and Jacqueline have said. Like, listen to your gut, and if it feels like it's going to be something worthwhile for you, if you feel called to it, and even then, if you feel like there's a part of you that's repressed and you aren't connecting with it, like you can't be your higher self. And if you're looking for a community that's going to validate you and tell you, you should really tap into that because it's who you are, and you're without it, you're not going to be like your happiest, most empowered self. And I found that through this community. Like one of my accountability buddies, Bianca, she was so great with me. We both like validated each other's experiences. We were feeling the same kinds of things, and then eventually we both came like to the same conclusions about like our jobs, and that led from one thing to another. And she like would always hear me out, and if anything, you know, there's someone there that's going to validate like your experiences. And as you're figuring out like who you want to become in the process, they're still going to be there, and they're going to be telling you, hey, like I see you becoming like more radiant. I see you like becoming like just this higher self that you weren't like when I first met you. And just seeing that growth is like, you know, your sign that you're on the right path, and you get that validation here. So I really appreciated that, because I don't think I was going to get it elsewhere, because, you know, everyone else has their expectations of you. So if you want to break out of that and really seek fulfillment, I say you should join.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much. And to end, where can people find you all so that they can stay in touch? Well, obviously, we will put your links down below in the show notes. Sunkin, we'll start with you. So tell us where people can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on my Instagram page, Sunkin Yoga, and it's still in the works, but I promise you it's going to be life-changing. So many people are like already excited about what I'm going to do, because there's a need for like Latina yogis in this world. So if you, you know, want to learn more about yoga and wellness, please connect with me. I'd be so happy to like take you on. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Thank you. And then, Jackie, where can people find you?
So I'm mostly active on Instagram. It's Jacqueline Torres _ builds. And semi-active on Facebook. It's Jackie Torres. You can follow me for more tips about investing, and we're actually creating a community in Metro Atlanta as well for all Spanish-speaking investors. Immigrants,
Love it.
more like immigrants. So teaching them, you know, going from being the worker to actually being the investor. So it's been a big movement, and I'm really excited to be part of that.
I also need to connect you, Jackie, with a girl named Clara who's in my mastermind. She was in Courage Driven Latina like a year and a half ago, but she is based in Texas, but she's a real estate broker, and she's really targeting the Spanish speaking community and leading workshops and different things like that. So somebody else that I need to connect you with.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually texting Wendy right now about having lunch.
Yay! How exciting. Yeah, so Jackie joined because Wendy was in Courage Driven Latina like a year before Jackie. So I love all of these little connections in the community and the little web. Love it. Okay, well, I know that you can follow Erica because I started following her new page this morning. Okay, her Instagram is elite property _ boss if you want to stay in touch with Erika Padilla. And again, we will link all of these in the show notes down below. Thank you all so, so much for coming on. I appreciate you sharing your transformation and sharing where you are and overall just your experience in the program. I'm super excited about us doing our Change 30 challenge right now. At the time of recording, we're only on day 2, but I feel like there's already been so much activity and so much change going on just in the first 2 days. And I will see you all on our call later today. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theericacruz.com. That's Erica with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erica Cruz. That's Erica with a K because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.